Tom, where were you born and reared?
Newcastle, Clonmel, County Tipperary.
And the house that you're living in, who lived in there before you?
My father and all his brothers and sisters and that. And I got it from William O'Donnell. My uncle left the farm to me.
And you have, when I visited you there a couple of weeks ago, you had a great collection all out on the table.
That's right, yeah.
Where did you get that from?
Some of them came from my uncle, that he kept them over the years there, and then more of them came from my mother's side, her mother and my uncle. They had them in their house just across the valley from where I live. Because I have the bunker there on my own farm where I live at the moment there, where they all hid the time of the troubles.
And in that bunker, you found bits and pieces.
Bits and pieces, yeah. Some ammunition, 303 ammunition, and an old gun, small handgun, and bits of knives and bits of stuff that they used during the time they were hiding there to keep them survived, like, you know, that bits, like, I found probably the last of the stuff was left there, you know, over the years, and then my uncle had some who had kept and put away as well, and the other side then my grandmother had more stuff then put away.
And there were loads of bits and pieces on that table, including a big wad of money.
Yes.
What was the story behind that?
The story behind that was a picture of Michael Collins they had up in my grandmother's house for years and years. It was a big one and a big frame, and kind of a thick back in it. And that money was sent to him for looking after him from the Collins Foundation and Dan Breen and letters all over the years. And she kept it at the back of the picture. But years back, I remember my uncle saying that they changed from the money when the banks were changed, and they changed it up. And it always stayed in the back of the picture. And then the house where they were living across the stream got kind of bad repair, so they bought a farm down the road further down level ground, and they built a new house there. So they brought everything with them. And any of the forts they had, the 3 forts of that time, that one was the main one. It was kind of poured across the table in the new house, and my uncle used to be always laughing, saying he looking up at it. If I was having tea, he'd be smirking. He said, "God, that's a valuable fort up there." And this went on for a long time. I could never understand, you know. And I knew that the history of the man and all, and he loved it, you know. But then he decided before he died that he'd hand it up. He wanted it. He'd like it went up to the door, the photographs, and he got me to ring up a local TD and to me, and a photographer came to the house. They made arrangements to come, and I told him they were coming on such a day, such a time, and he said, "You'll be down here now the night before," he said, "and we'll have this sorted when they come and all." And I did. I went down, and he had it down on the table, turned upside down with the pinches and the pliers up in the back of it, and I said, "Yes, what's going on here?" And we opened it up, and the money was inside in the back of it, and there was a small little shoe from his grandmother's time, and a few little items as well, medals and a few little things at the back. Was kept there. He said she never spent it. It was kept and renewed money. So that was the story on that before.
The wad of money.
Yeah.
And the reason why the Collins Foundation sent her the money was because...
Yeah, she looked after him, yeah. Yes, Michael Collins came 3 times to the house there late in the night, and his troops, and they slept there. They had to go up at their own bed and give them their beds, and his lads, some of them stayed there and guard out in the yard, and they visited early in the morning across just the stream to where I am now, and they visited there where the bunker was, where there were 12 of them hiding underground, and he visited them there the 3 times he came. And the last time he came then, when they went to move it, they had to stay an extra day because it was full of the other opposition, and they couldn't get out. So it was my grandfather went off that day early morning down along to Newcastle, and he organised it with all different farmers to take over from him, and then they take over from the next farm that he'd bring them off early in the morning. At 5 o'clock he went off with them, and he organised it all up along up for his Grange from Newcastle. And he done it, and they went off at 5 o'clock down the glen, down along by the ditches, down the fields, and he had organised that with Helen's down near Newcastle. And they were taken over from him to bring him across to Finniss's farm, and Finniss's take over then, but he ran into a bit of trouble when he came to Helen's. he looked down the road himself first, and all the lads were inside the ditch, and there were a couple of the other opposition talking to the Helden girls up on the wall, and all the boys were waiting inside, hiding in the kitchen, and they couldn't come out to take over, so he had to leave that alone and come back up and continue on to finishes himself. And he'd done that deed, and the finishes went on down to Hackles, and then they had a bit of a problem. The river was there, they organised, the river was there to go on to Bunses, so they organised rafts with ropes, one gang on one side and the other to pull them across, and then they got him onto Bunses on the bank of the river, and they headed up to Grange. And that was his deed done then.
And that was Michael Collins?
That was Michael Collins and his men, yeah.
So that was before the Civil War then?
Yeah.
And De Valera spent time in the bunker?
De Valera spent time in the bunker, yeah. Yeah, there was one day that he went across the road to meet Liam Lynch and hand over paperwork on my uncle and all. They didn't remember the day well that he'd done it, and went up and had a chat with him, and it was shortly after that then the shooting took place, you know. But he was there for a long time, yeah. And you had all them, there were 12 of them now, and I don't know the full history of all the names, but there was Dan Breen and Lacey and all them, and you know. So.
And you were saying Liam Lynch was shot not too far away from...
Yeah, just across the road from me, yeah.
And he was making his way back to...
Yeah, they said that he was running back for the dugout the day he was shot. Yeah, they were hiding in Gorton Bridge, and they were ambushed there, and they were making their way up the hill to come across, and he was shot. They were heading back for my place there where the bunker was.
And the monument is to Liam Lynch, you're saying that isn't the spot where he was killed, was that right?
Yes, that's right, yeah. They're saying he was shot further down there, yeah. And that he was brought up as there, yeah.
You told me a story of finding a rifle when you were a chap.
Well, no, I see a rifle being found when I was a chap, yeah. That time it was a big thing, the mass every year for Liam Lynch, with all the walk, and hundreds come for the mass, and the pipe band up across the hill, and we'd all go back. I was young at the time, probably 6 or 7, and I remember the mass being on. There was 400 or 500 people there, and the kids were playing around the hill like that time. There was no plantation or anything, and there were kind of big rocks that you could fit 3 or 4 young lads going underneath and hiding. And the day that the mass was on, this young fella ran out. He found a 303 rifle with the bait and on, and he ran down the hill with it, and got to a wicked excitement. Old people trying to take it off of him. It was there since the troubled times, so shoved in. He just copped and he pulled it out. I don't know where it ended up after, but I can still remember that day well. Yeah.
And when you talk about where things ended up afterwards, you were telling me that there were guns and other bits and pieces found up near you, were there?
Yeah, there were a lot of stuff like that was in the bunker. It was moved a couple of days after the trouble finishing, and it was hid up the road in a farm on the bank of a stream, and it stayed there for years and years and years until the flood came and kind of cut in underneath it. There was a brother and sister living there, and it fell out into the water and got washed down on the stream there. They went down one day bringing up cattle or sheep or something, and they saw it, but they rang the army, and the army made a big pile in the middle of the field with sandbags and blew it up there. Yeah.
And were you ever told what was in the collection?
No, I never really found out, but they were saying it was the big mortars and 303 guns and ammunition, and so there was supposed to be a Vickers machine gun as well that was used in the bunker at the time. Yeah. I was talking to an army man after, his poor man is dead now. He was there the day they blew it up, and he was telling me the kind of stuff that was there.
And when was it found again? Many years after?
It's about 20 years ago from now it was found, you know. Yeah.
Wasn't long ago, really.
No.
And come here, where did you hear all them stories?
All them stories were the hair standing in the back of your head from your father and your uncles and your mother and all the people belonging to you and the neighbours, and you know you had it since you were a kid, like, you know, but everything went on and what happened and the way they were fed, like, and they were hiding down. It was the women were great people, like, you know, because they cooked the grub for them, and it was left in a different point of the ditch on the field, different nights, and it was one of the lads were hiding, would have to go out to a different point. He'd have to know the point of the field to pick it up in the corner, and to be different places. It wouldn't be the same place the whole time. You know, he was changing and pick up the food for him and all.
And was your grandmother one of those women?
My grandmother, yeah, and all my aunts and my father's side and all, my mother's side. It was mostly there were a big family of my own there, and my own fathers, and they were heavily involved in it there. Yeah. They actually, one of the lads that were hiding them went out when they picked up a message, and he got shot. A shot fired at him, and timber went into his face, splinters, and they hit the timber and went into his face, and they actually looked after him, they were bathing him and looked after the wound, you know, at that time. And
was your grandmother's house ever raided at all?
No, not that I know of anyway, no, not that I know of, no.
And did your granny, do you remember your grandmother?
Oh God, yes.
Did she talk about it much?
Yeah, she did, she talked about it at the time, yeah. Yeah, but she'd be kind of telling you, young fella, don't be telling that now, you know. You'll be getting the clip in the ear, like. Yeah. You know.
What would she tell you?
I should be telling you the stories about the way that, you know, the knock would come to the door. It could be 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. They had to get up and they'd have to give them all their beds and let them in and grub, and the lads would stay out there and get in the yard, you know. And there was one particular time they came to, there was a neighbour from Morrissey, he's dead now, and he was coming back from the pub. He didn't know there was a shot cut past the house, and he was singing a song. And the boys thought he was going to blow the cover, so he was captured and put into a hospital until morning, until they were gone. Yeah.
So the boys would come middle of the night?
Yeah, you wouldn't know they'd come. There's 3 times it happened, but you get the knock at the door, you know, and they had to give up their beds and all and look after them and feed them. And, yeah.
Did she ever tell you how many men stayed?
She was always saying there was about 15 to 20, like in the gang, you know, with him. Yeah. Different times. Sometimes it might be 10, sometimes it might be 15, you know, but it's up to about 20 the most, I think, ever. I remember the time he brought him down, he'd bring him down to the stream, all down along to 5 o'clock in the morning. I think it was the biggest time, I think, that.
And did she volunteer to have her house as a safe house, or did it just happen?
It just happened, I'd say, because you see, that time I suppose you had no other choice, and it just happened. And I suppose the bunker was so near, and then I suppose all the people around there were involved, and everyone knew one another, and the connection, and like they were all married close to one another, like, you know, that time.
So that's an interesting one. All the neighbours were tight.
They were all tight, yeah. It was a tight little area, yeah, and everyone knew what was going on, and you know.
You were telling me when I met you before that the neighbours dug out the bunker.
Yeah, the old people in my father's time dug out the bunker, yeah, and they'd be telling the story about the way it was dug, you know, and the way, because everyone would be kind of saying, my God, it was an awful amount of clay. How did you hide so much clay for the digging of it? But like they built it on the bank up over the glen, the stream there, and it was done with they dug it with the big old meal bags, and there was 20 or 30 lads with picks and shovels digging, filling the meal bags, and where it was, if you'd see, you know what it is yourself now, you see it, they would slip off the bags down into the stream, and there were lads below shaking the bags into the water, and more lads bringing up the empty bags to keep them full again. It was all done by night time, but while they were doing it, they were all lads, neighbours watching on different points of anyone coming in to the area as well, watching. It was all done dark and secret, and it was all timbered off and rushes cut, and then old galvanised put on top of the rushes and covered off with clay, and they actually walked out over them the time of the troubles and didn't know they were there. It was done so good, you know, it was completely camouflaged. There were 2 escape routes into the bunker.
And who would have told you about the bunker growing up?
Oh, back along from my uncles and fathers and aunts, the whole lot, yeah.
And that was on your land from day one?
That was on land from day one, yeah.
I know you've moved, you've pushed some of the clay back and you've helped the walls from falling down. What way was it when you were a child? Could you play in around? Was there a roof on it when you were a chap?
There was a bit of a roof on it when I was very young, yeah, and you could run through it, but then it kind of just started to fall in the trench part, so we just shoveled it up and put the old timbers along the side again to keep it from falling in. But hopefully we'll put it back, the original timbers, it was all round timbers. We just done it in a way just to protect it for the time being, to keep it alive, not to let it go fall.
And you have the original galvanised on there still.
Yeah, I took a big interest in it when we joined the rep scheme, because we joined the rep scheme and there were grants given for land that time to look after land and different things, and we didn't think anything or say anything about the bunker, because that bit of ground was planted at the time. But it was a couple of days after we were contacted by the reps to know had we something historic on our land. They found it, and I was thinking, I said, nothing on the land, the fields that were going for reps at the moment, and I just thought, I said, the bunker is there since the time of the Troubles, and De Valera and Collins and Liam Lynch. And they said, that's it. They said, we'll be out tomorrow to see it. So they came out and they were blown away, and then they were on bus loads and all there as well, and the history students and all, and they were kind of, the reps finished in and they were getting on to me to get insurance and get it, a roadway into it for the students, get it set up, That's when we really took interest of, my God, they were onto us, this would be looked after,
When was that, Tom?
The reps started, that's about, we're going back, let's see now, we're going back 25 years ago now, yeah.
Were any of your relations involved in the IRA at all?
They were back along, yeah, they were, yeah.
And that house where Colin slept, that's still standing?
It's still standing, yeah. Still there, yeah. And it's amazing, like when you go into the house, the one room that Michael Collins slept in the 3 times, you wouldn't even know there were a room there. It was a ladder going up with a little L-shaped lats, and there was only a staple on the little door thing, and it was up over a parlour, little place. And we take down the ladder and put back the thing, you wouldn't think. It was a little tight corner to get into. But that was how he slept 3 times. After the room to still, well, there's some in bad repair, the room, but like just tidy it up again, like it's still there, the house is still there, and the history, like, all that. The roof is good in the house now. My brother had that house at the moment, So hopefully he's thinking of maybe doing it up, the history of it again now.
When did you start getting interested in all this?
Well, I was always kind of interested since I was young, because, I don't know, it just stayed in me about the stories. And I listened to the stories, and kept them in my head the whole time. And I always had a kind of an interest in listening to old people, the stories, and take it in, it wasn't just a case of, that's nonsense, So I always kept it, and then, when, like I said, we got into the rep scheme and we had our history there, and what went on and the people fought for, what our own people put into it in the work, like. So, just kind of kept it going the whole time.
And you were after giving some of your bits and pieces here into the museum?
That's right, Jen. That was in my place. I found was kept by my uncle and my grandmother on the other side across the stream. Yeah, I'd keep them I had them for a long time and looked after them. So I said they're better here for people to view them and more safer. So at the time, going back the years, you didn't know whether you'd lose stuff or lose your history. Like, and it's nice to see a place like this that, this is that they're there and can be looked after, and they're safe.
And as you get older, do you see the importance of that?
Oh God, yes, yeah. It's gone to a place in Clonmel like this that it happened only out the road, like, it's only 12 miles out the road, and the history, like, it was probably kept too quiet for years, so it's just a shame.
And here to get a chance for other people to see.
Yeah, and hopefully, like, get it viewed and get people in to see it, and be nice, it's there, and there's a lot of young people out there doing history and students, and would like to see it, I know that over the years there were a lot of places around and land was reclaimed, and covered in and excavated. It's a pity, like a lot of stuff is gone, you know, so like to be the same with my one. If the place was sold or I didn't had an interest, it would be covered over as well, because when I was planting the place I made sure they wouldn't go near it with the machines at the time, you know, so to be a shame, like, you know, like when you was thinking that the men that slept there and 6 months they were tough, like, and it was damp and everything, like you didn't know when you come out and stuck your head out who was outside or what, you know, so.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think that we can have the objects you have, but also that's the actual bunker itself surviving.
Yeah, I would love to see more put into the bunker, you know, put it back, like I said, with the original round timbers and get it for people to view it, you know. Like I say, because you'll never again see one like that, like, you know, it's crazy when you think of it, like 6 months underground and so well done, and the work went into digging and the people and the tough times, you know. Like when they digging, like when I digging them myself, found a real old pick, like an old trench pick, you know, that was used, like the handle rotted, and like you were just saying, God, the men for that hell that could talk now, like, you know. So, you know, and digging it under such tough times too, digging it in the quiet and getting it done, and, you know. And we had come back. I remember when I was young, I suppose I was about 8, 9. The 3 people belonging to Tipperary came down to see it. It was actually a neighbour of mine. They were gone wrong. They went up the road. It was a neighbour of mine now, Michael Dunn, he's dead. That met him on the road. They were looking for it, and he brought him down to show him where it was. And they wanted to come down to see where Tipperary, the bunker where he hid. And then there was a lovely man that called to me. He had an injury himself from the troubled times. His poor man is dead now as well. He was barely able to walk in that time to see it with a walking stick there. It was in the O'Riordan. And he was to come back to me. He had a lot of history. He knew all about the bunker and the men and what went on in life. But the poor man passed away over the years there. Later when he called to me, but he was to tell me the whole story about it. And he was to name all the lads that were there, and they left that and they went on out to Ballysaggart a couple 2 or 3 days after, and they went back to Fermoy and signed the treaty from there. He said they stopped in a house in Ballysaggart for tea. They were fed there in a house in Ballysaggart at the leaving my place, the bunker there. And we found out the live ammunition, the 303 ammunition that was used, and there was knife and no knife and bits and pieces, and then there was certain stuff my uncle kept inside. Actually, I remember we knocking the old house that fell in the air. There was stuff just left up in the wall. He put it along the top of the stones in the wall. They were left.
A lot of stuff there.
A lot of stuff there, yeah. But sure, like, there could be stuff around near enough to, you know, that time they probably had stuff buried too near the bunker, you know. I know there was a lot of stuff in the bunker at that time, the Vickers machine gun and all that stuff, but it was all cleared away 3 or 4 days after as well, you know.
And you were saying as well that there were fellas out there digging over the years as well?
Yeah, there were people, coming that just digging to see what they'd find, yeah. I remember my father and also when they left it, that I suppose to stop people going into it, they kind of caved, they knocked in the roof on it, you know, along. Not to have people going in hiding it, they kind of sabotaged it after the trouble finishing, that they knocked in the roof on it. And I remember seeing it then after the galvanised was caved in, you know, over the years, and you know, trees and leaves that had grown there.
Was that in the main compartment?
Yeah, the main compartment, yeah, they kind of broke it down when the trouble finished. This was where people wouldn't be going into it, you know.
Isn't it time and unusual? You ought to who would have thought in your father's time they would have been knocking it down and saying that was, get rid of it?
Yeah, just knock it in, yeah.
And now we're trying to get it back to where it was.
Yeah.
I suppose that's the time does that, doesn't it?
Time does that, yeah. Actually, like, just, it would be nice to get it back to where it was, because you're looking at a pre-63, you know, bunker, like, that's reality, that's what's there, like, you know, it's a pre-63, like, and be nice to get it back and get people to visit it, and memories of all the people, you know, everyone that fought and dug it out and fed people and kept people, like I said, like the women alone, like got fair play to them, like they're tough times, you know.
Yeah, we forget sometimes that the women, they were at the cold face of it all when they could put up the men for the night, but then if the lads raided, they were the ones who were going to get the brunt of it.
They were the ones, yeah, and they done the coking, they brought food out the quiet, like in places, and had to drop it off, and their own husbands or their own brothers went out in the morning out the door, they didn't know they were going to come back that evening, you know. Everything, it was a full-time worry, like. They were running the house, like, they were the main people, like, the house, like, you know.
Yeah. And did your grandmother and them, they farmed as well, did they?
They farmed as well, yeah.
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 Were there any houses targeted locally?
Not really, just down in the village of Newcastle there, the great house and all was bombed and blown up, and few around, just small instances on there, that part of that time, like, you know. The great house was the biggest one that time that was blown up.
Who was the family there?
Or that was kind of part of Perry's estate, like, you know, that house.
And you were saying that was fired on with shells, was it?
Yeah, it was blown up one time, the time of the troubles, yeah, with shells, yeah. Ambushed and bombed. So it's knocked away, and there's nothing that was left. They knocked it away from building stuff, you know.
Oh, we've got heard the stories.
Yeah. And so back around the Galties, then again was another big area as well, you know.
Did your grandmother ever talk about the men, where were they from? What counties they were from, or anything like that?
No, I can never remember, no, really, no. Probably did maybe, but just to take it in, you know, if you were too young.
Yeah.
Often I'd say to myself, it's a pity you weren't older, you know, and write down stuff and record stuff, but when you're young, you know.
When Michael Collins died, can you tell me the story of what happened there?
When he died, a couple of days after, they contacted my grandmother and her husband, and they sent down a free car for him to bring him up to the funeral, and they were brought to his funeral and they were fed and dropped back home again that evening. So that.
A car came down from Dublin?
Yeah. My last it was the pride. I remember she telling me when I was young at school, it was her main pride. She would tell me at the fire, but my God, I never thought I'd be in Dublin, because the most they went was maybe horse and trap into Clonmel or with Newcastle or Cappaquin shopping, you know. Yeah.
And who were this Michael Collins Foundation?
The Michael Collins Foundation. Yeah, it's set up down in Dublin, the foundation for Michael Collins there. And they were the people then that funded her, looking after her, sending donations to her and all after that. And her husband then, my grandfather, he lost his sight for a number of years before he died. So she was looking after the farm. My grandfather was a cattle dealer. He used to buy cattle in marts, and he'd land taken in different places near the marts. And when he lost his sight, she was go off with the horse and trap to different places, look after the cattle, until she got to sell them in our Cappaquin and Mitchell different places, you know. They had a good time for people. Anyone that looked after them, they had good time for people, you know. Yeah.
What are you holding in your hand at all, Tom?
I'm holding another photograph that was with the Michael Collins man that my uncle handed over at the time, and that was the one was with that at the time as well. There was 3 photographs together, the 3 main photographs that they had in the old house when they moved down to the new one, and that was one of the photographs as well. And I also didn't have the other one here, the bigger one of the 1916 Rising again.
Those 2 photographs and the one of Michael Collins were always hanging in the house?
Yeah, always hanging in the house, yeah. And they were their main pride and joy, like they looked after them, you know, and they had to go with them when they went down to the new house, and they were looked after. And made sure that they were there. They were all, the three were hanging in different points of the kitchen all the time.
And the Michael Collins photograph was the one where the money was behind.
The money was behind that, the big frame, yeah. And she did a few letters from Dan Breen and all was in the back of it, and Sean McOwen and all wrote letters to her, donating to her and thanking her and as well. They were in the back of the photograph as well. Yeah. £400 a punt, was it? Pounds that time, pounds that time, yeah.
It's a lot of money back then.
A lot of money back then, yeah. I don't know what year now, but I remember my uncle telling me that about there was some change in the banks, and that I don't know what year it was when they changed the money, but they changed it up thinking that the other money would get invalid, you know, so he remembered the time it was changed and put it back into the photograph again. So it stayed in the tenors then from that up, since the tenors are there. So.
And how big was the Michael Collins photograph?
Oh, it was big. It was about 1.5 the size of that again. Yeah, on a big thick timber frame again.
And this, your uncle wanted to give it away?
He wanted to hand it up to the Dáil, the photographs, and hang him in the Dáil. That's why he wanted to contact his TD to bring him up, to hang him in the Dáil. It was he was, before he died, that was what he wanted to do, so he done it. So his picture was on the paper and all as well.
That was good for him, he wanted it.
Yeah, that's the thing he got into his head and he wanted to do it, so he was on to me to phone up and get Tom Hayes to do it, so I did it and it happened, and so we ended up now, so.
But he kept the money.
Kept the money. Kept the money, kept the belongings, yeah. He was always giving out to me, you mind that stuff now, yeah. Make sure it goes to good hands and keep it.